Hello and welcome to the Big Island in Hawaii for the 2011 Ironman World Championship, the legendary Hawaiian Ironman. Jason Bennett alongside a man who's won it twice, Aussie Chris McCormack. Matt, great to have you with us on the coverage. Looking forward to an amazing day of racing.
It's going to be an amazing race. It always is. This event has a history like no other in this sport, and it's always exciting.
Tell us about the mythology of this race, because it really is a larger-than-life sporting event.
Well, this is where triathlon started 35 years ago. It spawned a sport that's now mushroomed around the world, and there is no event in endurance racing quite like it. This is the Mount Everest of triathlon. This is the toughest challenge you can possibly put yourself through, and 1,800 people are going to experience that on Saturday. And
plenty of those are amateurs that have been training for up to 10 years, sometimes maybe longer, with that single dream of getting to the start line here at Kona.
It's a life goal for some people. I meet a lot of people year after year that said it's been a 25-year journey for me to get here, it's been a 10-year journey for me to get here. There's some amazing stories, and it's all about getting to that finish line and getting there by midnight.
There's a long way to go to get to that finish line, a 3.86 kilometre ocean swim, followed by a 180 kilometre bike ride across those lava fields, and then of course a full 42 kilometre marathon to finish. It really is a race, not just in distance, but in brutality in terms of the conditions. It's unlike any other.
The race is brutal mentally, it's brutal physically. The climatic conditions are hot, humid and windy. It's a tough day at the office, but that's what draws people back here year after year, is the challenge. I think Ironman racing around the world is growing, and this is the top of the tree.
It's a legendary course. Let's go and take a look now with Chris McCormack at some of the keys to the Kona course.
Here we are at Kailua Pier, the famous Digby Beach. This is where 1,750 people will start their race. A lot of nervous energy, race morning, the apprehension's building up, and a lot of people make the error of not setting themselves up well in the water. Try and find yourself and position yourself around good swimmers, set up your day, get out of here quick into the open water to get back to the pier and set up your bike ride with a quick transition. The bike ride's 180 kilometres, 90k out of town, 90k back, and this is what you come out to, classic Hawaii. Heat, humidity, barrenness, lava rock. It doesn't get more raw than this. This is hell on earth. It's windy, it's horrible, and for the runners, this is where the game starts for them. The cyclists need to get their gaps. In cycling, they say never attack into a headwind. But if you want to beat Mirinda Carfree, Craig Alexander, the best runners in this field, they need to make their move out here. They need to use the headwinds, use these conditions to their advantage, and set their race up. Weaken the legs before we hit the marathon. And then you start the run. You head up, out of town, through the lava fields to this point on the course, the Energy Lab. It's a 3-mile sadistic killer section of the race. It comes at the critical point of 30 kilometres. It's down and up. This is the point in the race where the winners ask themselves, am I prepared to put it all on the line and take this title? Am I coming back next year? This is where it all happens. The famous Palani Hill, unquestionably the most pivotal point of this race, and I'll tell you why. You hit this spot twice in the event. Once at 16 kilometres, and it's an ascent, and once later at 40 kilometres. You can feel fantastic running out of town, but as you go up, this will tell you whether you're in this event or not. I've been the guy who's led this event and been walking up this hill. Felt fantastic out of town, come up, walking, game over. And on the way home, for the people who are looking at winning this race, history shows whoever crests this hill first, the run into town with 2 kilometres left to go, will win this race.
This race is such a complex jigsaw puzzle. There's so many different elements, so many moving parts to master. Here's Macca with his keys to success.
Out of all the factors you have to manage here in Kona, the most critical one is nutrition and hydration. You can get your preparation perfect, you can have trained all year, you can have planned, but if you mess that up here on race day, it is game over. Everybody comes here with Kona with an eating plan, everybody comes here with a hydration plan, and it's how you get that food in over the duration of the race that will affect whether you're running this event for the win or you're walking out there in the lava fields. To give you some idea of the type of quantity of food these guys are taking in, and girls, it's equivalent of about 1.5 litres of fluid every single hour. They're taking in about 600 or 700 calories, which is about 2 Big Macs an hour for up to 17 hours. That's the type of fuel you need to meet the finish line. Ask anybody who's raced here in Kona, and the first thing they're going to tell you about is the heat, the brutality of it, the humidity, how it feels like it's sticking to you. And every single athlete has to deal with that on 2 levels. There's the mental side. You're out there, you're suffering, it's too hot, I can't deal with this. How you get through that in your own head will determine your outcome. And then there's the physical side, the losing of fluids, the keeping the body cool, we're putting ice, we're using sponges. Those sort of things will determine whether you have that ability to continue pushing or whether you have to break down, stop and cool yourself down. And that is a fundamental part of success here in Kona. Athletes are creatures of habit, and Kona is set up to break all those habits. You come to this island, this tiny little town of Kona, and this is it in triathlon. You know, you have to deal with the people, you have to deal with the press, and as a pro in the past, a guy who raced here, I had to hide. You have to save that energy. You know, you walk out on the streets here, there's 1,750 athletes who have read about you in the magazines that want your time, and that time is energy taxing. And how the athletes during the week handle that can determine whether they get on the start line full of energy, vibrant, or they're a little bit fatigued, and that is a big part of this puzzle of getting it right. This race is not just a physical test, it's a tactical one as well, and anybody who's won here has had to make that decision out there when to pull the trigger. It's about taking a chance, it's about trusting your instincts, it's about looking at the athletes around you and saying, is it my time to go? Do I have the courage now to commit to my run for the title? And that is what will separate the winner from the second or third place guy. You know, we've raced all around the world, we've raced each other in Europe, we've raced each other in Asia, but this isn't Europe and this isn't Asia, this is Kona. And to win here, we've seen the stories, we've seen the horror stories, you have to be prepared to be one of those statistics.
So much goes into winning this race, Macca. It's not just about turning up on the start line. These guys have been preparing from the moment they finished last year to get themselves right for this year.
And they've been racing all year, but no race matters like Kona. The guys who crossed the line last year, they were second, third, fourth or fifth, and they started their planning for this event from that day on. They've put their structures in place, they've done their training loads, and they've arrived here today, and they're ready to rock. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what unfolds, how they've done that, whether they'll handle the heat, which is the critical part of this event.
It's a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? It took you many years of just learning little bits and pieces and putting the building blocks together until you finally unlock that code.
And once you get that, you stick onto that and you hold it. It took me, 5 years to finally win here. Every year I walked away and said, I need to adjust that, I need to change that. So that's why you look at the guys who have been successful here. They have that formula and they know what they've got to do to win it.
Fascinating races on both the men's and the women's side. We'll take a look at the leading contenders for the 2011 Ironman World Championship when our Aussies Abroad special continues. Welcome back to the Aussies Abroad 2011 Ironman World Championship Special. Jason Bennett alongside Chris McCormack. And Macca, the women's race is a race in two. Or is it? Marinda Carfrae versus Chrissy Wellington, the Aussie versus the undefeated Brit.
Well, the big question is, can Marinda rise to the challenge and be the first woman ever to beat Chrissy Wellington?
Marinda Carfrae thinks she can.
There has been a lot of talk about the battle between Chrissy and I, and we didn't get to race last year, unfortunately, because she was sick, but she's going to be there all guns blazing. I mean, you know, I know it hurt her to have to sit and watch me or someone else take the title. I mean, that's her race. She's won it 3 years in a row, and I went out there and had a fantastic day, and you know, wasn't too much slower than her fastest time on this course too. So definitely, I think, you know, she's keen to get out there and show who's boss, and I'm keen to get out there and show her that, you know, wait a minute, you know, I deserve this crown too.
Say someone mixes it up and say Chrissy does something unexpected and starts to open up a lead or something. Is there at some point as an athlete you have to make that decision on the spot to say, I may have to deviate from my plan?
You know what, I think it'll depend how I feel. I definitely race by feel on race day, and obviously I know that Chrissy's a fantastic runner off the bike, so I can't give her too much time on the bike. So, I mean, if I'm uncomfortable and I need to stay uncomfortable to keep her within reaching distance, then if I'm feeling like I can handle it, then I will. And that's a risk that I might take, and it might backfire at the end of the day, but you never know until you actually give it a crack.
Do you feel like you're a better athlete now than you were 12 months ago, having had that extra experience of racing here last year and also just the last 12 months of dealing with what you've dealt with as your career sort of progressed?
Yeah, absolutely. I think every year, my goal in this sport is to become a better athlete every year. I learn new lessons every year, I make mistakes, and I learn from them. And I've definitely made a couple of mistakes this year, and I definitely think that I'll learn from those and take those into years to come. But I mean, am I a better athlete than last year? Yeah, I would say that I am.
Are you as hungry?
Yeah, I mean, it's not about, for me, it's not about just winning. It's about how fast am I capable of going on this course. How fast can I go over the course of an Ironman race and out here? So while I won last year, that was amazing, and I want to win more titles hopefully in my career. But at the end of the day, I just want to look back and say I found my limit, and that was what I could do as a professional triathlete.
So if you did faster than you did last year, but say finish second or third, you'd be content?
Yes, absolutely. I think for me it's about improving every year and building up the blocks every year. I mean, I'm 30 years old. I've got, 10 years if I want to keep racing in the sport. And if I can keep improving every year, then I won last year. So if I can keep improving on that, and the sport's going to improve, women are going to get faster and faster, then I can hopefully stay on top and keep living this amazing life for many years to come.
Thanks for your time. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
On the men's side, the two-time champion, Craig Alexander, back here hungrier than ever. Can he get it done for a third time?
Look, there's no reason why. He's definitely got all the tools to do it.
I think I was clearly the fourth best here today, so I think I got what I deserved.
When you sat down and did your post-mortem after last year, you're obviously disappointed with the result. How long did it take you before you could assess it objectively and sort of put the disappointment behind you? And then what did you learn out of it?
Well, I still can't assess it objectively, to be honest. I was never disappointed with the performance. I was disappointed with the result. I think when you win a race, and particularly a world championship, and you become world champion, you never own the title, you're just a custodian of it, but it becomes very comfortable, and I'd had it for 2 years, and I had to pass the baton on to someone else, so to speak, and yeah, it hurt. I mean, I remember when we spoke last year, the emotion's still very raw, I'd say for a good 2 months, but what I learned from it was that even when a preparation is faultless, you may not win. I think going in last year as the two-time defending champion, certainly I was public enemy number one, and this is the kind of race where I think you need to have a great day to win, not just a good day or a very good day. You need to have a great day, and I think I had a very good day.
Did you have any sense that you became too predictable?
That has been said, and I think that's a valid point. It's easy in hindsight to look back and say, yeah, well, maybe I should have done this. I was very predictable. People knew what my game plan was going to be, and they were ready for it. But that game plan had brought me a lot of success for 10 years, so I didn't see there was any need really to overhaul things. You're always tweaking things and trying to find those little, the 1%ers, as the football coach will call it, just the attention to the finer details which can result in, I guess, performance benefits. But sometimes you're forced to find more than that 0.5% or 1%.
What would it mean to you to win this year?
I think, it's a tough question to answer, but it would be extremely gratifying to win. I think to win something once is amazing, a high caliber race. To repeat and to defend is amazing, but to do it and be consistent, I think that shows, for me, consistency is the mark of a great athlete. To consistently bring your best and your highest level when people are expecting you to do that, to consistently be one of the guys to beat when everyone's looking at you as the guy to beat. It's a hard thing to do, and it's a hard thing to achieve. To win this year would be very, very satisfying.
What are, say, the 3 keys to success here at Kona?
Physical preparation, a mental willingness to go to a place you know you're going to have to go in the race, and I think a self-belief, not an arrogance, a humility. I once read somewhere, someone had said, the island doesn't know names and it doesn't play favourites, and that's true. But I think you need to have respect for the distance and the conditions, the utmost respect for your competition, but a real innate self-belief that you can get the job done.
Thanks for your time. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
So Craig Alexander, he's here, he's hungry, he's ready to go. Can he turn 2 championships into 3?
Well, if anyone can, he can. He's proven he can win here. He's tough as nails. He's the best runner, I still believe, in the field. And, just looking at the form guide this year, he's ticked all the right boxes.
He's come here looking noticeably leaner. Is that a conscious thing, do you think, on his behalf, and will it make a difference?
Well, I think in years past, Crowe, he raced a certain tactic, he raced a certain way, and we showed last year that you can get over the top of that. He's a fast learner. He's gone away this year. He's fixed up that bike problem. He rode phenomenally well at his World Championships in Vegas, which he won. He looks a lot stronger on the bike. He's on new equipment, and geez, he's going to be hard-pressed to beat.
It's one of the great truisms in sport, isn't it, that you learn more from losses than you do from wins. He would have learnt more from his 2010 experience than he would have of 08 and 09 combined.
Oh, he's one of the proudest champions that ever came here, and I think it was tough for him last year, and he walked away. He's, like I said, a very, very fast learner, a tough athlete, and he won't make those mistakes again. If the guys try and implement the same strategy as we used last year, they're going to be left exposed.
Expecting him to be more aggressive, more reactive this year?
Much more aggressive, much more. He's been quite vocal. This may be his last time here, and he's won 2 titles. And when you've got that in the bank, you're more prepared to pull the trigger, more prepared to take those chances. And he knows. The other guys don't. There's no one else in the field who's won here. He knows he can do it.
Who are the 1 or 2 others that he's going to be keeping a square eye on?
Look, this year it's all Europe, really. You've got Andreas Raelert. He broke the world record this year, the fastest man ever to over this Ironman distance. He take Crowe out. He beat Crowe last year, so he thinks he knows he can do it. He's one to watch. And the unsung hero is Marino Voenacker. He was 3rd here last year. No one's mentioned him. It was talking about me and Andreas last year. He's hungry. He went a 7:45, the 2nd fastest time in history. And I saw him earlier in the week. He's very, very confident.
There's so many variables, as we've discussed in this race. Moki can come from anywhere, but it seems less likely on the women's side. All the talk, all the focus has been Marinda versus Chrissy. Chrissy's never been beaten ever in any Ironman. How can Marinda do it?
She has to stay close. You know, Chrissy Wellington's strength is her ability to do the 3 disciplines very, very well. She's one of the first few girls out of the water. That's a weakness for Marinda. She's very, very powerful on the bike, and Marinda's strength is this run. So she needs to stay as close as she can on that bike, keep that deficit down, because if it comes down to her, Marinda can get this girl, and I can't wait to see it, because after watching Marinda race this year, that bike ride of hers is strong.
So Marinda said that she's going to be conscious, obviously, of where Chrissy is, and there might be a point, as you said, where she's going to have to pull the trigger and take a risk.
And she'll do that. She drew a lot of confidence out of last year's win. I think she's very happy being the Kona champion. She's proud of that title, and you don't want to give that up to anybody. And you know, I think she's very, very confident. I've seen her around town. She looks relaxed, and as I said, her racing season this year has shown she's ticked all the right boxes.
Well, it's race time. The 2011 Ironman World Championship. Sit back and enjoy it right here on ESPN.
No, they won't. And here we are, race morning, always very bright, a lot of excitement. First order of business for the athletes going in and getting their body marked. And here we see race number 1, Craig Alexander, coming back, looking for some redemption from last year.
Coming with great form, he won the Marines Ironman World Championship 70.3 recently. Eneko Llanos from Spain. He's also a competitor that does very well in the heat. Renard Tissing from South Africa, 5th place in 2010. Also a competitor on top form. Timo Brack, 6th place in 2010, comes in as the European champion and also the winner of Lanzarote earlier on in the year.
And on the women's side, here she is, Chrissy Wellington, our 3-time Ironman world champion. In a stunning turn of events, did not stop the race last year, leaving it open for Australia's Marinda Carfrae to take her first championship. This year, she wants to come and face Chrissy head-to-head and see if she can defend her title in a straight-up race.
Nerves written all over the defending champion Carfrae, as Craig Alexander, the 2-time Ford Ironman world champion, is now set for his day. Faris Al Sultan, the 2005 world champion, is also back doing very well. He won the European race this year in Frankfurt and is in good form.
Carolyn Steffen from Switzerland. She was 2nd place last year, has had a stunning year. She's coming in looking for much of the same. And Leander Cave, she's been flying under the radar, but bringing up her performances during the year, looking to challenge.
And a couple of special guys racing this year, a little bit unusual. He might be not going as fast as he normally does. This is Vitor Meira from Brazil. He normally races in the IndyCar series, going around the track at about 200 miles an hour. Same with this guy, an Indianapolis 500 winner, Tony Kanaan of Brazil, has decided to tackle the Ironman.
And in the transition area, the athletes getting ready to prep their bikes, pumping their tires, and here she is, 6-time Ironman champion. That was Natasha Bodman of Switzerland, wanting to come back and see what she still has left in the tank.
And what a great story this lady is. Karen Thurig of Switzerland, a 2-time Olympic medalist and also a 2-time time trial world champion in cycling. But this woman here, Julie Dibbins, holds the key to the race. She's one of the greatest swimmers and bikers of Ironman Triathlon, and she knows how to ride that bike.
She certainly is, and she comes in, I think, running a little bit of an injury, but her along with this lady, Carolyn Steffen, I think are deciding that they are going to want to take the race by the horns and really blow it open with their cycling prowess.
Another one of our woman age groupers there, just pumping up the tyres and getting ready for this. As the sun comes up over Mount Hualalai, this signals the start of the race. The athletes are now warming up and getting ready for their day in the 2011 Ford Ironman World Championship.
As we see some of the athletes, the professionals, they have a slightly earlier start with the gun going off at 6:30 a.m. for them. They are entering the water. This is the first year that we have only approximately 80 professionals starting at the World Championship.
All going through a ranking system that takes 12 months to get to this point. So we've got 50 men, we've got 30 women ready for their day here, competing for $580,000 US and $20,000 of Timex Ironman watch bonus preems as well. Julie Dibbins just swinging the arms around, getting ready for her race. Maddie Reid represented the USA at the Beijing Olympics in 2008, but today steps up from the Olympic distance to the Ironman.
Our athletes are starting to get warmed up for the swim. The surf having come down somewhat over the past couple of days, but still pretty lumpy out there, and we're not expecting the smoothest of swim courses today. Just a little bit of that residual surf should really make this in favor of the strong swimmers.
Paula, the swell right now is down. It's almost glassy out there. Chrissy Wellington had an accident just 2 weeks ago, and we can see the battle scars on her legs. She fell over after having a flat tyre on the front, and it's a big question mark as to what her form is today. The race is almost set. The athletes are ready now, 50 men, 30 women for their race. The professionals get a 30-minute head start, and we also have the water safety trying to keep them back and online. Today's race record is on the line. The conditions haven't been this good in years, Paula. We've got glassy conditions in the water, and then also over onto the bike ride. Light winds today is going to make for a fast bike. And there we go. We're off in the 2011 Ford Ironman World Championship. And Paula, you've been through this before. This is where the arms and the legs are flailing around. The washing machine is on the spin cycle. What's it like out there?
You know, once the cannon goes off, it's on. You wait so long, you work so hard, months and months of training. You visualize what's going to be happening. You try and decide where is the best point to start at the swim. You don't want to get caught in a bad position. So this is everything, but I'll tell you what, as soon as that cannon goes off and your arms are going, all you can think about is, thank goodness it's starting. I'm going to see if everything that I've done over the past 6 months, past 12 months, everything I've thought about is going to come to fruition today.
From the USA, Andy Potts is forming that arrowhead right at the beginning of the pack there. Pete Jacobs from Australia sitting right in behind Dr. Amanda Stevens in the women's professional race. She is the lead swimmer right now. Rachel Joyce is right there from Great Britain, as is Julie Dibbins.
Yes, I think that these women are really looking to take it out and sit with some of the front men and create a gap. They want a gap, they need a gap. When they get out of the swim and onto the bike course, they want to see how much time they can put on the likes of Mirinda Coffray and Chrissy Wellington. They know that this is their strength in the race, and they know that every second counts.
Some of the saltiest water on Earth, also some of the deepest water. The top point in the world is right here at Mauna Kea, standing at 13,769 feet. But that doesn't mean anything to Andy Potts, because he's got one thing on his mind right now, and that is separation. He wants to get out onto the bike ride with a lead, and halfway into this swim leg, he is doing exactly what he set out for.
Andy Potts is the most versatile athlete, I think, in the field today, racing all the way from Olympic distance through the 70.3 all the way up to Ironman. He is, at this moment in time, the top U.S. male athlete, I would have to say. He has raced at the World Championship just a few weeks ago at the Ironman 70.3 distance, and he is showing that he comes from some short course pedigree. Look at the gap he has put on this World Championship field.
A former training partner of Michael Phelps from the University of Michigan, Andy Potts rounds the 1.2 mile marker at about 150 yards clear of Pete Jacobs, and then the players. Craig Alexander, he's in that lead group. Marino van Hoenacker, third last year. Also Reynard Tissik and Andy Raylert from Germany. All the pro leaders and favourites are right there.
They certainly are. And, you know, to be honest, Greg, as they're in these swim groups, I think the main contenders, you know, thinking about the fact that it's probably 7 a.m. in the morning and they're not going to be finishing until well after lunchtime, I think the main contenders are content to be around one another, and they're not looking at Andy Potts as a serious threat, you know, for the whole day. So they're letting him have his moment up there in the swim, really pushing his strength and letting him have his moment at the front, getting some media, because I think they're pretty certain that once they get onto the bike course that they're going to be reeling him in.
Beautiful shots, whether they're under the water in the crystal blue waters of the Pacific here in Hawaii. These islands are magic, and today the athletes will be out there to be their own magician and create their magic out onto the race course today. We can see the stand-up paddlers out there leading our athletes all the way back in to the King Kamehameha Kona Beach Hotel, which is the finish line on the Kailua Pier. Now we see Potts just extending his lead away from the group. Now it's out to about 2 minutes.
It's absolutely incredible how much time he's put on to the professional field, and this is a wonderful view. You can see on the way out the age group Ironman World Championship is now underway, and you see the size of that field. There you have 1,800 athletes that got underway. As the professionals are on their way out, they are on their way out to the turnaround buoy.
Looking up from the bottom of the ocean, beautiful shots of the Pacific here as Andy Potts goes all the way out in front. He has been the leader right from the outset, and the 2.4 mile swim leg is almost coming to a close for Potts as he extends his lead from the rest of the competition.
His lead is absolutely incredible. When you get a nice aerial shot here, you realize the kind of separation he has put on this world-class field. As we look at the age group as making their way out, look at this beautiful shot with the school of fish. Where else can you have a world championship and be basically swimming in an aquarium? It is magnificent.
It's a 2-for-1, Paula. You get your free snorkel lessons and you get an Ironman triathlon at the same time. So 2.4 miles of swimming. Potts is trying to get under that 50-minute mark. Let's see if he can do it. He's got a huge lead on the rest of the competition right now as he dolphins his way back into the exit. The tier swim leg is now coming to a close. Potts needs to focus on his transition right now, and there he goes through the showers and off into transition.
Well, just, I think, about a minute and a half behind him, here comes the rest of the professional field, or the first group. And I think as I look at this group, you see all the top contenders coming out. Craig Alexander is exiting the water. Marino van Hoonacker is in that group. Pete Jacobs is in that group.
And talk about Pete Jacobs, a very good swimmer. But last year he just snuck inside of the top 10, said that he wants to come back and have a great race this year. He also set the fastest time on the run. Potts now makes a clean exit out of transition, wearing the stars and stripes today. The tier athlete there is running around, getting over to the mount line. He'll have to get across that red line and then jump on the bike, and now he is set for his 112 miles on the bike. The first 8 of those, very difficult, lots of very hard turns in the town of Kailua Kona.
I know, but look at him go. Typical short course racer. Did you see that transition and the way he mounted his bike? Shoes are on his bike, just jumping on. Unbelievable. As we take a look here at Pete Jacobs from Australia. This young man is a great swimmer. Used to be known for his swimming biking ability, but in the last 2 years has certainly brought up his game in running, having had the fastest marathon last year.
And a lot of the favourites coming in there. We saw a shot of Luke McKenzie, also Craig Alexander from Australia, the 2-time champion. Now Craig has really lifted his game on the swim leg here, but he needs to make up ground or stay in touch on the bike today. That has been his nemesis over the last few years, not being able to have that strong bike. Marino van Hoonacker, 3rd place in 2010 going out. The 2005 champion and the European champion Faris Al Sultan leaves. So at the end of the swim stage, the very first discipline, Potts from the USA, Jacobs Australia, Matty Reid from the USA, Marco Albert and Dirk Bockel.
Well, here come our women out of the swim, and I think it is Dr. Amanda Stevens from the U.S. leading the women out of the water with Julie Deebens right on her tail. These women have had a very good swim, some fast times, and they know they need to get out onto this bike course as soon as they can. And there goes Julie Deebens right in the middle of some of the top male athletes in the world. This is absolutely incredible. As she's heading out, I think she is going to press her advantage as fast and as hard as she can, because goodness knows she needs as much of a lead as she can get.
Potts at 2 miles onto the bike up Makala Road. He's going to make that right-hand turn onto Queen Kaumanu Highway and come on down through town as we look at aerial shots of the 2011 Ford Ironman World Championship. 1,850 bikes are lining themselves on the pier and awaiting their captains. They are going to steer the ships all the way through the 112-mile bike ride, but absolutely gorgeous shots. We have perfect weather today.
We absolutely have perfect weather. A little bit choppy there on the swim, but I've got to say that there is almost no wind out on the highway, which is highly unusual and certainly different from the week preceding, where it has been incredibly windy. As we see Reynard Tissing from South Africa, one of the top contenders. And in the women's field, there goes Rachel Joyce from Great Britain. The women from Great Britain really are turning into such a force in Ironman triathlon. As we see Leander Cave, also of Great Britain. Boy, these women are really stepping up their game.
The swim stage for women, the first discipline down, Amanda Stevens, Julie Dibbins, Lucy Zelenkova from the Czech Republic, Leander Cave and Rachel Joyce together.
Out on the bike, we see Julie Dibbins of Great Britain stamping her dominance early. She always does this. This is her style of racing. Perfectly set up for a 112-mile time trial.
It can be said for Craig Alexander. Alexander is now on his new ride as well and looking very strong. Kelly Williamson coming in out of the swim right now. She's had a great swim for her. She did very well in Texas this year in the Ironman and looks almost certain to have another great result here. The freshwater showers will be a welcome relief from the 79-degree water temperature and very salty. A good opportunity to just freshen up before the bike. In comes Caroline Steffen, also from Switzerland, and Australia's Marinda Carfrey, the defending world champion, carrying her sunglasses in her mouth.
Well, that's perfectly okay. I think both these women heading out onto the bike course are probably looking around and noticing the bike of Chrissy Wellington still racked in transition areas, something I'm sure they were not expecting to see.
Potts attacking the downhill of Palani Road, turning left on Kuakini Highway there. This is the 4 mile out and back section. 4 miles out uphill and then 4 miles back downhill. Then they will attack the steepest hill of the course. And here she comes, the 3-time Ford Ironman world champion, Chrissy Wellington, with a 101 swim today, Paula. That is very uncharacteristic.
Well, I think we're starting to see a few effects from that crash 2 weeks ago. A 101 swim, certainly not what she would expect. At least 6 minutes slower than she was last year.
So some of the slower pro swimmers just coming out of the water right now and heading for the showers as well. The athletes heading out up Kuakini Highway. Look at Julie Dibbins. She is really right in the middle of the top professional men, riding alongside Reynard Tissing of South Africa, which is pretty incredible. Now the athletes are streaming out of T1, getting out onto the bike. Their swim is done. The age group athletes, 1,850 total athletes today, just getting out of the water. They have until 9:20, 2 hours and 20 minutes. Faris Al Sultan from Germany is really making quick work early on the bike. Faris is well known for his cycling prowess, so I'm sure he's going to want to push the pace. He doesn't want to sit around too long and let the runners really settle in and latch on to them. I think he wants to blow it apart, as does this woman. There goes Julie Dibbins. Boy, she is just setting the pace for the women. A turnaround section there on the Kuakini Highway. In town, the athletes want to make quick work of this early part. It is a very difficult section, as we see now Andy Potts just getting out onto the Queen Kaumanu Highway. Interesting to see that he has no eyewear out, and he's going to have to, squint and protect himself from that sun today. Very, very harsh. Well, here we see Chrissy Wellington, very uncharacteristic position for her, usually much closer out of the swim. So coming off a somewhat lesser swim for her, but I think that's her injury. We'll see what she can do over the rest of the course. Andreas Raylert went 7:41 earlier in the year and holds one of the fastest times in Ironman history. Now today, he wants to win this race and said it would be a dream come true. Now it's up to you, Andy. You are on the Queen K Highway. And as expected on the bike course, America's Chris Lieto, the uber cyclist, everybody looks to him to set the pace on this bike leg in Hawaii. Beautiful shots across the lava field. It's heating up out there. We get temperatures of about 130 degrees on the road today. It's only going to be 88 degrees on the outside, but temperatures will certainly move up during the middle of the morning. Humidity is also creeping up as well, but it is calm. Hardly any wind today is going to help these cyclists with a very fast time. Marino van Hoornakker from Belgium is a fantastic athlete. He holds the fastest Ironman time in the world at 7 hours and 43 minutes. Today he finds himself at the lead of the group. Andreas Raelert riding on his bike there. It's sitting in second place. He is doing a great job of it. Now we've got Potts to be caught by all the rest of the group. So Potts' lead has now shrunk to 5 seconds.
Well, this is a very interesting scenario. You see almost the top 30 men there crowding towards the front, and now it becomes a game of tactics. The strong cyclists have to make the decision right now how they're going to play this. Are they going to break this race apart? As you see Chris Lieto having a few words there with America's TJ Tollefson, also a fantastic cyclist. I think they were probably exchanging some words saying, let's go, let's not let these athletes sit around and turn this into a tactical race. Let's see what there is. What do you have in your legs? Let's blow it apart.
Interesting choice of wheels today for Lieto, going for a shallow wheel on the front and a deep dish wheel on the back. Disc wheels are not allowed on these courses because of the heavy wind. Craig Alexander from Australia is not known for riding in the lead group here in Kona, but today he needs to ride in that group if he stands a chance of taking his third title. TJ Tollefson of Des Moines, Iowa now passes Marino van Hoornakker, and a quick hello and a quick goodbye.
Very interesting equipment there by TJ, always on the cutting edge of his equipment, always a slightly different setup. Did you see his helmet? He kind of looks like he should be at the skateboard park wearing that one, to be honest with you.
The skateboard park or the ice hockey rink playing for the Anaheim Angels or Ducks or whatever they call themselves. So there we go. Andy Potts is just playing with the field right now. The athletes have to sit 10 metres back and they have 25 seconds to pass another athlete. Here we go on the women's side of things. Mary Beth Ellis from the United States is having a great year. She did 3 Ironman races this year, 3 wins.
And here she is, her teammate from Team TBB, Carolyn Steffen. Everyone looking to her again to be up front and keep the pressure on the bike. She had a wonderful marathon, but she needs to be out in front if she has a shot of winning.
Leander Cave, training out of Tucson, Arizona, went down there for one reason, for the heat. She wanted to train in the heat to come here and to be ready. Now she sits right in the middle there, just riding up the Queen K Highway toward the Waikoloa village. This typically, Paula, is the windiest section of the course. After they hit Kauai High, this section right here is heading up to Harvey Town, a little artist colony that's sitting at about 650 feet only. This is known for heavy headwinds, but today, beautiful conditions. As Cave now gets out of the saddle, stretching and pushing that pace as she passes Mary Beth Ellis.
As we see, Leander, she actually went to Tucson, Arizona to train in the heat, but she did go up to high altitude as well. She took a stint up in Flagstaff, Arizona for quite a stretch of time to see if that would help her performance. Andy Potts just still toying there with the men's field. This is a very interesting and dynamic race right now. A lot of the athletes interacting, trying to encourage one another to keep the pressure on. TJ just really gunning it there, wants to get this front men's pack broken up as much as possible.
Either broken up or pushing the pace. Lieto doesn't want anything of what Potts is doing right now. Andy Potts seems to be showing a sense of urgency, going forward, dropping back, going forward, and then dropping back again. So Potts has seemed to be in a sort of a rhythm that's not really normal. Chris Lieto has a few words with Potts and says, come on mate, we're going to have to push it. We want to get the speed up and take the sting right out of those runners' legs.
Yeah, you can see this. You have to think in the long term that this is not going to serve any of these athletes very well with these intense accelerations in the middle of a 112-mile time trial where steady effort really is what you're looking for and pays off and doesn't take too much out of your legs. These big surges by some of these top male athletes, I have to think are going to come back and haunt them later in the day.
A nice long stretch of the Queen Ka'umano Highway right out along the North Kahala coast here in the Big Island of Hawaii is absolutely gorgeous, as we see another couple of passes heading up toward the far end of the course. The far end of the course is in Harvey Town. It is 60 miles into the bike ride. After they hit Harvey, it's going to be a screaming downhill section all the way back to this point right here. This is Kauai High. So now they make that right-hand turn, 18 miles of grinding uphill. Rachel Joyce just taking on some nutrition. Ironman perform is probably what she wants to get down, providing herself with a little bit of sodium replacement and also some electrolytes.
Rachel Joyce from Great Britain. We probably need to speak a little more about her. Won the toughest Ironman race on the circuit this year, earlier in Lanzarote. Her biking always strong, but her running certainly coming around. She ran a 3:02 marathon off the bike there.
Lieto now making his way up to Harvey Town after making that turn at Kauai High. Out front of these two gentlemen right here, the two-time champion Alexander now being overtaken by compatriot from Australia, Luke McKenzie, having a good day out there today, a solid swim and a solid bike thus far, doing a lot of work in that group. Now we've got Lieto just looking up and turning around. This is not like Chris. He normally gets out in the front, puts his head down and gains a lot of momentum and speed on this section.
Meanwhile, setting a very consistent time trial pace and doesn't seem to be having to worry about interaction is Julie Deebens. She is continuing to put immense amount of time on the women's field.
Exactly there, Paula. McKenzie now just in that beautiful time trial position. He's got that chin almost down there. He's in a very good position, very aero. You can see that he's not losing too much, friction to the road there, not wobbling as much as a lot of the other guys, but this is just a little bit windier section than what they've been experiencing today. The winds are so low that I think that we might be looking at records on the bike.
And here we see Chrissy Wellington out of the saddle. She is continuing to lose time with Julie Deebens. It's very unusual. You have to wonder what might be going through her head, because every split that she's going to be seeing off that leaderboard is showing her falling further and further behind the athletes up front. Heather Wurtell from Canada has won 2 Ironman races earlier this year, a tremendous athlete, a tremendous cyclist. I think this would be a very good pairing, and I think that she is going to be very surprised to see herself riding alongside or with Chrissy Wellington, the 3-time world champion. This is not a position that I think Heather has ever found herself in. But look at Chrissy, you know what? She's got that never say die attitude, and she's going to keep that pressure on.
The defending champion Carfrey is not known for her scintillating bike times, but today she finds herself in a very different territory. That's in front of Wellington. I'd really like to know what she's thinking.
Yes, this I think is what everybody's been waiting for. There's no way that Carfrey would have expected to be out of the swim ahead of Wellington, so this is definitely new territory. But not new territory for Julie Deebens. This is how she races every race she is in. She takes it right from the gun, in the swim, on the bike, always trying to get the biggest lead possible, and boy is she getting a lead.
Marino van Hoenacker from Belgium right now, just going past one of our leading cyclists there, just putting in his time at the front. Now the Maui wind kicks up. At the bottom end of the race, there was no wind what to speak of. And now at the top end of the race, we have this Maui wind coming across the channel and whipping up a headwind for these guys. So they are riding into the wind only for about another 5 miles, and then they will turn down. Alexander has now positioned himself in 4th place in the race. Van Hoenacker has now dropped back. So now we have 6 to 7 cyclists in the lead of this group heading into the turnaround at 60 miles.
Oh, and that's not a good sign as we look at Marino van Hoenacker already covered in salt. The biggest change in the weather over the last 48 hours has been the temperature and the humidity. So I think this heat, as I look at him, is starting to creep up. That is an awful lot of salt for an athlete that hasn't even made the turnaround of the bike, because the wind may have picked up, but the heat today is definitely way up there.
So overtaking Andreas Raelert, then Craig Alexander, and now just passing Faris Al Sultan, Van Hoenacker is on the move. He wants to get down to that turnaround and make sure that he's got a bit of a lead before he makes that U-turn and then starts to ride downhill at breakneck speed. So there we go, we're turning around here in the town of Harvey. We have 6 to 7 cyclists coming through there. Van Hoenacker from Belgium, Mackenzie from Australia, Lieto from the USA, Australia's Craig Alexander, the two-time champion, just rounding it out now, Faris Al Sultan, and then going through there in the final position, Andy Raelert from Germany. All of our favourites are in this group.
I have to say, Greg, though, you have to wonder about what is going on. There have been so many back and forth and lead changes, the athletes going by, having words with one another, getting to the front, looking back. It's just, you got to wonder what the cost of those kind of tactics and mental energy is going to take later in the day.
And Julie Dibbins doesn't find herself that far behind our lead males right now. She is 15 minutes down only. Van Hoenacker now riding on the downhill position here. Lieto is also cranking out those pedals. I spoke to Lieto last year and he said that he ran out of gears on the way downhill. He was hitting 65 kilometers per hour. Today, he's right on track to do that again.
Oh, and you know, look at this. Craig Alexander, he is just hammering this bike leg today. It is fantastic. These athletes are so used to having him at least 3 or 4 minutes off the back at this point in the race. So this is a total turnaround of events, should I say. And it almost seems to me that they're going to keep attacking. They're trying to see if they can get rid of Craig Alexander in the way that they have over the previous years. And clearly, it's not happening.
It's not happening today. As you can see, Marinda Caffrey now being overtaken by some of our women's field here. She's starting to feel and starting to grimace. You can see that she is slowing down a little bit on the way up to Harvey. Our leaders on the men's race have turned around. Now our women are attacking on the way up.
Yeah, Marinda Caffrey has been in a wonderful position on the bike ride, certainly further up than we would expect to see her, but here she comes. Chrissy Wellington, coming from a substantial deficit, is just showing the champion that she is, and she is just going to keep the pressure on as best as she can today and get herself as close to the front because she knows that she has probably the most dynamic running leg.
A beautiful day here in Kailua Kona at the 2011 Ford IMAB World Championship as the two-time champion here. Australia's Craig Alexander is on the move. He's now overtaking Marino Van Hoenacker, sensing that Luke McKenzie and Chris Lieto are clearing out. A little gap is starting to appear up there. They only need to stay 10 metres back, but now clearly Lieto there has a few words to Alexander.
Well, here we go again. It was Chris Lieto going off the front and then easing back up, looking over his shoulder, and now Craig Alexander is up the front, Luke McKenzie attacking. This is very counter to what you would expect out of a time trial. As we see Caroline Steffen from Switzerland making the turnaround now in second place in the women's division, doing much what she did last year, trying to put as much time into the good women runners behind her, as Rachel Joyce, representing Team Abu Dhabi, she's coming up showing her great strength on the bike. And her and Leander Cave just sort of seem to be joined at the hip today. These two women from Great Britain seem to be pacing off one another, doing a wonderful job. I think they've decided that they want to put as much of a gap and try and see what kind of breakthrough performance they can have out here today.
And they're certainly having that right now as Lieto goes past Van Hoenacker. We've had a lot of changes today, lead changes for second, all the way through 8th place. Raylert's been in there. This is McKenzie being overtaken by Lieto. Lieto at this stage of the race, Paula, we know that he accelerates away from the competition. It's the last part of the bike ride that he wants to separate himself because of his weaker run leg. Now that we see Marino Van Hoenacker and Chris Lieto make that left turn at Kauai High, this is a 1 mile uphill grind before they hit the Queen Kaumanu Highway, and 35 miles only stand between them and T2 before they hit that run leg. McKenzie there being overtaken by Hoenacker. Van Hoenacker now is in second place. Lieto is making his move back onto the Queen K Highway, Paula, and getting it done.
He is making his move. He's definitely waited a little bit longer this year than he has in past years, and we see Craig Alexander. This has to be incredibly discouraging for the other top male professionals in the field. He certainly gave notice of the kind of bike shape that he's in when he had one of the fastest bike splits at the World Championship 70.3 4 weeks ago in Las Vegas. So this has to be a little bit worrying for these athletes, because he sure backed it up with the fastest run of the day. And we continue to look here at
Dirk Bockel from Luxembourg and also Andreas Rehler going through. This is Andy Bucherer from Germany. These three have been riding in a trio. They've been relatively quiet in the lead chase group right now behind Lieto.
talking about a dynamic race. In the women's race, Kieran Thurg in her last professional race, passing Chrissy Wellington. This should make things very interesting because she is the strongest cyclist on pace to set a bike course record here today and could potentially drag Chrissy up the road and get her back into the race.
Julie Dibbins still on fire out onto the Queen K Highway. This is Leander Cave right now. She's still riding just ahead of Rachel Joyce. These two have been going back and forth all day, pacing and getting things done. These two are heading for a good race today. They've never been in this position up so early, so quickly in this race, and riding at a very nice speed.
Yeah, Rachel and Leander both part of this force, this tour de force of women in Ironman racing from the Great Britain.
Craig Alexander gets a heads up on the competition where they're at exactly. He leads the chase group. The only man that's in front of him right now is Chris Lieto. The USA's Uber biker, like you were saying, Paula, is doing his thing. The last 30 miles of this course is where he likes to accelerate away from his competition. He needs to build a big lead going into the run leg. He will need to set a record personally on the run leg if he stands any chance of winning this World Championship.
And Chris Lieto, well, it's taken him a good 90 miles to finally break apart this men's race. He usually gets it done a little bit earlier, but this front group has finally shattered. He is up the road, and chasing him down is Luke McKenzie of Australia, Marino van Hoenacker of Belgium, and of course our two-time champion Craig Alexander. Boy, things are really shaping up.
On the women's side of things, Julie Dibbins now is out of the saddle and cycling very hard back toward town. Like Lieto, she needs to build a sizable lead on the bike to get out there on the run and stand any chance as well. She's carrying a foot injury coming into this race. She had a plate removed from a top toe just recently. The heat haze out there, the temperatures in Kona right now are getting up into the mid to high 80s. The humidity is creeping up, and now Chris Lieto is coming in. He's got a quarter of a mile to ride, unstrapping the shoes and putting his feet on top of them as he makes that right-hand turn onto Palani Road. Now he has 200 yards to go before he gets off the bike and then heads out onto the run course.
This is not an unfamiliar situation for Chris. Very used to leading races. His strategy, his MO as a professional triathlete: swim hard, bike like crazy, and see if you can hold on for the run. As you look at him looking a little bit stiff, I think he's paying the price for a very inconsistent and erratic way that he rode this time trial.
Dibbins now finding herself 15 miles from town in the lead. She is riding on record pace as well. She needs to have that consistent run today, but I'm sure that she's not thinking about the run at this stage, nor is this girl here. As she goes by the airport with 6 miles to ride, Caroline Steffen is in a great position. She's in second place and doing well. Third and fourth place at the moment is Leander Cave and Rachel Joyce, both representing Great Britain, both riding alongside of each other all day long. They have been shadowing each other from the swim all the way into the bike ride, and I wouldn't mind betting it'll be the run too.
Luke McKenzie of Australia, what a breakthrough this has been. This is really turning his year around, has suffered from an injury, so has got to be thrilled to see himself up with the top contenders. As we see Marino van Hoenacker just covered in salt coming through, heading out onto the run leg. There is Chris Lieto managing to put 4 minutes into that chase group of 3.
Now we'll see what Lieto's got left in his tank. He needs to get out there and just find a consistent pace. He lives and trains in Kailua Kona as well. So at the end of the bike, Chris Lieto from the USA, Luke McKenzie, Australia, Van Hoenacker, Alexander, and rounding out the top 5 from Luxembourg is Dirk Bockel. So on the women's race, Julie Dibbins is still leading. She's got about 5 miles to go now. Stefan is in second place and pushing hard. Cave and Joyce have made up a little bit of time on Stefan at the moment, but Dibbins is the one that has been doing all the damage. Now going out in the first mile of the run here, we see Alexander just going into second place, overtaking fellow Aussie Mackenzie.
As we look at Luke Mackenzie trying to match the speed of Craig Alexander, you almost have to sort of say to yourself, don't do that right now. Find your own pace, because Craig Alexander, I have a feeling, is going to head to the front and try and get this done and over with as soon as possible.
Our women's race is coming into transition with Julie Dibbins setting a bike course record earlier today, a 4:44.14, having to finish the race obviously to claim that bike course record. So we'll see what happens a little bit later on this afternoon. Andy Raylert just going out. He finds himself a few minutes down from Craig Alexander.
Caroline Stefan coming off the bike here in second place. She is, 10 minutes behind Julie Dibbins. But I'm not sure that these girls are looking at Dibbins as much as they are looking at the gap backwards to see how much time they have on Marinda Carfrae and they have on Chrissy Wellington.
As Dibbins goes out onto the run course today, she did not finish the Ironman World Championship 70.3 4 weeks ago because of a nagging foot injury. We'll see how far she can take it today. Stefan, on the other hand, had a breakthrough race last year, finishing second at the 2010 Ford Ironman World Championship with an incredible run leg. A run leg that even surprised herself at 3:05.
And off the bike is the duo from Great Britain, Leander Cave and Rachel Joyce. Leander Cave, always a factor, but never has managed to pull it all the way through the marathon. Has been strong early in part of the leg, but always fades toward the end. And off the bike is Kieran Thurick, also an incredible bike time, setting the bike course record, second time behind Julie Dibbins. So I guess it remains to be seen who makes it to the finish line.
Yeah, she had a 4:44.20, so we'll see what happens a little bit later. Craig Alexander, now in second place, is now coming up onto the shoulder of Chris Lieto. This is for the lead. Alexander has not been in this position in his career. He usually gets the lead out onto the Queen Ka'umanu Highway, but today, at about 6 miles, the pass is about to happen. It's an inevitable thing that Alexander was going to catch Lieto. It was just a matter of time, and there was no acknowledgement whatsoever. I think that Lieto is struggling right now, and Alexander is just finding his pace.
Yeah, this is definitely an unusual position for Alexander. It's certainly at this particular event to be up front so early.
But Julie Dibbins has slowed to a walk. You can see that her right leg is fully strapped at the moment, and she is having difficulty just finding a rhythm and getting up on the toes like she normally runs.
And here we see Andy Raylett. Boy, has he hit this run course. He took off 3 minutes down from Luke Mackenzie and Craig Alexander. And once again, he finds himself a little off the lead, and the pressure is on him early, as I think he would like to see himself up at the front of the race earlier than he did last year, where he struggled almost till the end of the marathon to catch up to Chris McCormack.
He picked off 30 seconds a mile on Mackenzie and 5 seconds a mile on Craig Alexander through the first 6 miles. But Lieto now is slowing down. He is clearly struggling and he's grimacing. Alexander goes through the aid station. This is a very important part of the run. They're only through 7 miles of the run course right now. He has 19 miles to run. This is where nutrition really kicks in. He makes sure that he's sponging over the head to keep that core temperature down. He looks at his heart rate. He replaces the electrolytes and makes sure that he stays hydrated. Also, the surface of the road at the moment, it is heating up to 131 degrees Fahrenheit.
Well, with a smile on her face, it's Chrissy Wellington. Certainly never come off the bike. 20 plus minutes off the lead, but she's smiling.
And now Lieto has slowed to a walk. It is getting very difficult. He is cramping, he is struggling, he's going through a different set of emotions that he really wants to be going through, and he's also wobbling across the road there. Lieto is clearly having a hard time of it.
I have to feel that the way the men's portion of the bike leg played out, were very erratic way to ride, certainly not the way that these athletes train. Surging, coming back, surging was not the way that they usually do it in training, so I think it's coming back to haunt him.
The defending champion, Carfrae from Australia, finds herself over 20 minutes down on Dibbins as well, but clearly she is not interested in what Julie Dibbins is doing at the moment. She is interested in what Chrissy Wellington is doing. So at the end of the bike for the women today, Julie Dibbins set a record-setting performance at a 4:44.14. Andreas Raelert is now continuing his forge toward the front of the race as he goes up Hualalai Road. He is now 10 miles into the run course. 16 miles to go, and he's been clicking off 5 seconds a mile on Alexander.
And on to the women's race, Chrissy Wellington is showing why she is considered one of the fastest runners on the circuit. Not the smoothest of runners, but boy, she is moving faster than anybody else out there on the run course.
A powerful runner now. Gibbons slowing down to a walk. She is clearly feeling the pain, not just from the foot, but I think the bike ride as well. Setting that very fast time has really taken the sting out of her legs and struggling. As we head up Palani Road out onto the run course, Greg Bottle from Luxembourg is forcing his way into that top 5, a position that he's never been in, and he's happy to do it. Alexander, on the other hand, is just finding his rhythm out onto the Queen Katumanu Highway in first place with a 3-minute buffer on Andreas Raelert. This guy on screen right now who's cooling himself off, making sure that the nutrition goes in one way and overhead the other.
As always, the run leg of this Ironman World Championship, the emotions are one extreme to the other. And at the top end, we see our defending champion, Marinda Carfrae, flying. Her feet are barely touching the ground as she is trying to close down a 3-minute gap to Chrissy Wellington, who is up the road. These girls both checking their watches. There's a lot of pride on the line between these two over the run course record here.
Gibbons, the early bike leader, is now struggling along Elite Drive, now limping clearly on that injured foot. Now she's got something to think about, if she's going to go on or stop. This is really hurting the champion athlete. Caroline Steffen from Switzerland last year ran a 3:05, which surprised herself in the Rudd leg here to take second place, is now finding herself in the lead of this race. Rachel Joyce, on the other hand, is doing very well, pulling herself down just behind Leander Cave. And now, here she comes, Paula.
Chrissy Wellington is moving up to the front as expected. She is absolutely flying through this marathon. Leander Cave, once again, trying to show that she can be consistent through the full distance.
And now Pete Jacobs from Australia in the top 10 last year, finding himself in the top 3. Coming up on Andreas Raelert, who's just in front of him as they enter the Energy Lab. Dirk Bockel holding down 4th place, running a very consistent race.
Rachel Joyce coming up that Palani Hill. A lot of spectators. A tough point in this marathon to be walking, but you see she's walking with some level of commitment. Sometimes as an athlete, you just got to get it together.
This guy's got it together, that is clear. The 2-time Ironman world champion is now out in front. He has a 3-minute lead over his closest competition. One is a German, another an Australian. He might be worried about the Australian right now because last year Pete Jacobs ran a 2:41.05 compared to Craig Alexander's 2:41 high, so he knows the pressure is now coming from a fellow Aussie.
Well, it's an interesting position for him to be in as he is being chased by these two amazing runners as Andy Raelert and Pete Jacobs make their way into the Energy Lab, a very lonely and very stark place. On this course, no spectators, nothing. No one is allowed into this area of the course, so it'll be interesting for Craig to get a look at his competitors.
Chrissy Wellington now has her focus on what's ahead. Caroline Steffen is the leader of the race at the moment, and Chrissy Wellington is lurking like a shark. She is on the big island of Hawaii, and it's very powerful at the moment, and she's working her magic. Leander Cave is running in 3rd spot at the moment as well, but the leader here, Caroline Steffen, is checking her watch, checking the heart rate, and just running very consistent.
Yeah, Carolyn is amazingly consistent, is back on the Queen K Highway. Here comes Chrissy Wellington, making the pass right now on Leander Cave. Leander giving her a pat, understanding that she's overcoming a lot of obstacles, having crashed a couple of weeks earlier. So this women's race is really getting shaken up at the front.
So we get the split there. Alexander glimpses across to his right side and says, that's just about enough, Jack. I think I've got this one in the bag. 3 minutes lead on Andreas Raelert and Pete Jacobs as they are now in the Energy Lab as Alexander makes his way back down to town. Now we've got Wellington coming up onto the shoulder of Steffen. Wellington has won this race 3 times, and now she puts herself in a winning position again as she moves into the lead. And now, Paula, you've won 8 of these. She stands to win her 4th.
Absolutely, and she made that pass with a lot of authority, I must say.
Alexander clearly struggling at the last part. He has 1.5 miles to run. He is cramping now from the hamstrings. Now he is reduced to a very, very short stride until he gets himself together. This is a downhill section. Remember, Alexander is on record pace today. Now he is cramping. Is the record going to be in jeopardy, or does he just want a third championship? Alexander is now struggling, and Jacobs is now in second place and coming up on Alexander.
Well, we're in these final miles, and clearly all the athletes are struggling. Jacobs looking over his shoulder to make sure that he has put some distance between himself and this athlete, Andreas Raylor. He knows that he does not want this to come down to the wire. Boy, this men's race, all drama all the way to the end.
Setting 1996 by Luc Van Lierde from Belgium, and now Alexander. The clock is ticking right down. He's in a full-on sprint at the moment, giving it everything and realising that he's done enough. The 2011 Ford Ironman World Champion with a time of 8:03.56 and cramping very, very hard. Alexander's family now, Nerida and Lucy and Austin, are joining him at the line. Chrissy Wellington here, Paula, is looking very good.
She's looking good, but she's definitely struggling. Chrissy's head is moving, but the thing that's interesting about her, when you look at her running versus Mirinda Coffrey, Mirinda on her toes, but these girls are moving almost at the same speed. Mirinda just started to slightly chip away at that.
And Jacobs did enough to shake Andreas Raylor from Germany, finishing in second place. He cannot believe that an Aussie double today. 1-2 finish for Australia. Craig Alexander first. Pete Jacobs from Sydney, Australia, in second. Rounding out the top spot. The second place last year, Andreas Raylor from Germany. Happy with his race. He got knocked in the head today. He had blood coming out of the eye after the swim. And now very gallant. Race by Dirk Bockel today from Luxembourg, coming in fourth place. He has had a top 10 finish before, but not this high. He did represent Luxembourg in the Olympic Games in 2008 at the Olympic distance, but now home for him is the Ironman. And then rounding out the top 5 position, also from Germany today, another great day for Europe. Timo Bruck, a little disappointing on the bike, but today the Commerzbank athlete rounding out the top 5.
Timo Bruck, Germany!
And on to the women's race. Coming into town, Mirinda Coffrey chipping away at Chrissy Wellington's lead, but she is digging deep. Not the prettiest of running styles coming down the Palani Hill, but she knows what the finish is just around the corner. But I'll tell you what, Mirinda Coffrey, the champion that she is not going to stop chasing. She looks like she's running a 5K, but today it will be all about Britain's Chrissy Wellington.
Coffrey reducing the deficit down to 240 there, but it looks like Wellington has enough to take her 4th victory here. A bike crash, a very nasty one just 2 weeks ago, came in with a bruised hip and skin off all of her left side, but did enough for the victory. The 2011 Ford Ironman World Champion, Chrissy Wellington, for the 4th time. And now Carfrey Paula coming down a Lily Drive. This is one of the most famous 400 metres in all of Ironman.
And she's not letting up. She is going to keep this deficit as small as possible. What a fantastic effort for her. As she keeps pushing, she would like to be faster than she was last year, and she's going to be. So 1-2 for the dominant woman in Ironman. Mirinda Coffrey comes in 2nd place.
Pocket Rocket from Australia also taking the run record with it, 2:52 low. And also Leander Cave, who grew up in Australia, who represents Great Britain, trains out of Tucson, Arizona, in 3rd place, a breakthrough race for the Great Britain athlete. Also Rachel Joyce, last year's swim leader, and she pretty much shadowed Leander Cave all day long as they take a 3rd and 4th spot together. Team Abu Dhabi with Rachel Joyce in 4th position.
And Rachel Joyce's 4th place gives 3 of the top 4 positions to the women of Great Britain. And Carolyn Steffen fought so hard at the front, 2nd place last year, but she sure gave it everything out there today as the Swiss Miss comes to the finish line, rounding out the top 5. What a gutsy performance from her today.
Caroline Steffen!
age group athletes have until 5:30 to complete their 112 miles of the bike, and then they have to rack their bikes and get out onto the 26.2 mile marathon run. So final standings in the men's today, good enough for an overall course record. Craig Alexander in first, Pete Jacobs also from Australia in second, Ray Lert from Germany, Bockel, and rounding out the top 5, Timo Bruck from Germany. Our women, what a great race from Wellington, picking up her 4th race overall. Marinda Carfrey in second, Leander Cave, Rachel Joyce, and rounding out the top 5 from Switzerland, Caroline Steffen. For Paul and Yubi Fraser, I am Greg Welch.
Well, this race never fails to deliver. That was incredible, Macca.
Oh, one of the greatest races I've ever seen, and wasn't it a great day for the Aussies? In the men, we are 1 and 2. Crowe showing his absolute sheer dominance at this event. I think his best ever performance in his career, and to see young Pete, the next wave of Australian, come through and do what he did, inspiring to see.
Let's start with Crowe, an incredible performance. We spoke in the pre-race, and he spoke in the pre-race about how he's going to be aggressive, he was going to be reactive. When Chris Liatta was trying to get off the front on the bike, Crowe wasn't going to be left behind this year.
And he rode a 4:21, a bike, you know, the fifth or sixth fastest bike time in the history of this race, and then delivered with a 2:50 marathon and a course record. An unbelievable day for Craig Alexander. One of the toughest men to ever race this sport, and he showed that today. He towed up the world record holder, the second best guy in the world, and just showed his absolute domination at this race.
Right at the closing stage of the race, when he looked to have it won, suddenly the cramp set in. He had to stop a couple of times. Tell us what that's like when you stop. How hard is it to get going again?
Well, it just shows you how tough this race is, because he's leading this event. He had it in the bag, and a mile from home, his body started shutting down, and it's never over until you finish at the pier. And he had to walk a few times, and he was fortunate enough that he'd opened up enough of a gap to get him home. But you know, this race is brutal, and even the best suffer. And Crowe marched through and pulled it off.
It's all happening here.
Yeah, we've got people flopping through everywhere. I guess that's Ironman finishes. They can't control their legs, but it's amazing to be here.
He's just gone and spent 9 hours on the road. I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, exactly.
An emotional win for Crowe too. He was very, very emotional after the finish, probably uncharacteristically so, which shows just how much this race meant to him.
Well, he said all year after last year, I said you're not going to be able to fool him twice, and he's really focused on this event. He said he wanted to win here one more time, and for all of us who love this sport, this might be the last time we ever see Craig Alexander in Kona. It's a great way to go out, a course record, and you can see that in his last quarter mile. He was really emotional. His family was there to meet him at the finish, and we haven't seen him yet. It was a tough day. He's in the medical tent, and but I can tell he was proud, and it does. This event moves you.
A glorious day for Craig Alexander.
Chris and Andy and Marino raised the bar last year, and I think it was very rewarding to come back and put in a performance like that, because I had to not reinvent myself, but I had to make improvements.
We spoke before the race about being more aggressive, more reactive. In previous years, Chris Liatto's got off the front and skipped away. This year, a group of you, every time he seemed to attack, you guys went with him and hung in, and you had the ride of your life.
Yeah, I think myself, Luke McKenzie and Marino Vanunaka rode brilliantly. We stayed with Chris for, must have been 140 or 150 kilometres, and I think I got off the bike in 3rd spot, hit the run course in 3rd spot, and just went to work. It wasn't easy though, you know. Andy Rayler put a lot of pressure on me in the middle of that marathon, and I wasn't sure if the splits I was getting were accurate, but I was running at 2:35, 2:34 marathon pace, and he was taking 10 seconds a mile out of me. So I thought one of two things is going to happen here. He's going to blow up, or we're both going to blow up, or someone may hang on. And you know, at that point, you're all in. And I made the decision just to commit, take the risk, go out of my comfort zone, run a little quicker than perhaps I had planned. But that's the nature of racing. Sometimes the strategy goes out the window and it becomes a mental battle. I was cramping, so I had to shorten the stride length. You know, I really felt the last 2 miles, the wheels just totally came off. And it wasn't even running, it was more surviving. I think the people around me were more worried than I was. People were screaming at me, and I could see the light at the end of the tunnel by that point, and a little bit of aggressive self-talk and just changing the stride length up a bit. You know, just little things you can bring into play that may help.
Last couple of years we've spoken, you've said it's more about performance. You think you've got a really special one in you. It's not about whether you finish 1st, 2nd or 3rd. It's about pulling out that performance of a lifetime. Was today that performance?
I think it may have been. You know, it's the course record, and you think of the athletes who have raced here, who have done the fastest time in history. Is totally humbling. You know, I can't believe it. Won't sink in probably ever, but not just the time, just the way I felt to be in control like that all day, to be able to be proactive and make the decisions and dictate the race the way I did. It's a dream come true to race that way. And, I dreamt I could race like that. My other two victories were not like that. Particularly 09, that was more in the trenches, but it's such a satisfying win.
But a man who was almost as happy was the guy who finished second, Pete Jacobs, another Aussie. A golden day for the Aussies, 1-2. You spent a lot of time out on the course following Pete. When Ray Lurt went by him, did you think it was all over?
I did, actually. Pete came out of the Energy Lab. He'd really made a concerted push to go for the win. He'd said all year that he came here to win, and you know, he took on the biggest boys in the sport, Craig Alexander and Andreas Raelert, and with about 4 miles to go, he started to fall apart, and Raelert caught him, and a lot of us thought it was game over, but he pulled himself together. I yelled and screamed at him for a while out there, and I don't know where he found that courage, but it was inspiring, and a true professional performance by Pete. He stepped up and definitely our big hopeful of the future.
Well, your yelling and screaming had quite an impact on Pete Jacobs.
Macca, your support on the run, there were times when I just couldn't do anything else, but when I passed him again for the second time, that really helped. You yelling at me to give it everything.
Just do it, stay with him, pick it up now, go with him.
It just goes to show that I love the heat here, it works for me, and you know, I'll keep coming back, and yeah, hopefully I will win it.
It's good signs for him, isn't it, Mac?
8:09, I think the 4th fastest time in the history of this race, and he's still saying he's got improvement. Huge potential for you, Pete. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Well done today.
Yeah,
mate.
thanks very much.
One other Aussie finishing in the top 10 today in the men's race. Luke McKenzie finished 9th, and he was wrapped as well.
To finish top 10, he'd be very happy with that.
Indeed he was.
You know, I sat out last year, and I think I learned a lot from the dynamics of the race, and I thought, you know what, this is my opportunity to just lay it on the line and see what happens. And yeah, I blew up in the run, but I held in there for the top 10, and I'm so happy with that because, you know I could have produced that in the past year, and I've just fallen short, and to finally get across the line in the top 10, it really gives me confidence that one day I can contend to win this race.
On the women's side, we thought it was going to be a race in two between Marinda Carfrae and Chrissy Wellington, but for much of the day it didn't look like it was going to pan out that way.
Well, Chrissy got out of the water, probably I think her worst swim ever in Ironman Hawaii, behind Marinda, and I actually thought Marinda had a measure, and you know, she came through on the bike, set herself up, but Marinda showed a class on the marathon to finish the closest anyone has ever finished behind Chrissy Wellington. It was an amazing race amongst the women.
And at some stages, Marinda and Chrissy were both more than 20 minutes off the race lead, yet somehow they just kept powering through, and they just carved their way through the field. It just shows how they are really a cut above the rest of this field.
Oh, both of them. You know, I thought at one stage there, I saw Chrissy as she entered the Energy Lab, she didn't look as good as she had in years past, and Marinda was absolutely tearing up this course, and you know, I thought this is going to be very close, and you know, those girls are a cut above the others. I think full credit to Stefan, who finished 3rd, and all the other girls, but it was really a 2-horse race today.
Marinda was carving her way through the field at the end there, catching up ground on Chrissy Wellington, but in the end she just ran out of miles. She had nothing left when she crossed the line.
I had my work cut out in the run, that's for sure, and I didn't feel that great, to be honest. In the start of the run, I was really struggling, and I thought this was going to be, you know, a rough day, but we got out in the Queen K and just concentrated on getting to the next station, getting to the next mile marker, and just putting 1 mile after the other, and yeah, I mean, got to the finish line 2nd place, pretty happy with that.
Once you see the split starting to come down on the run, does that give you that little bit extra spring in your step to know that the girls in front of you are hurting every bit as much as you are, if not more?
You know, it's typical of me. I always seem to do this. I swim and bike, you know, slower than the other girls, and I have to run so hard every time, and so I'm just used to being in that position, and you can never count yourself out, absolutely ever. In an Ironman, you never know what could happen to the girls in the last 5K. You know, things start to, you know, fall apart, absolutely. Cramping happens. I mean, you start seeing things. It's a rough part of the race, and I mean, you've just got to try and hold it together better than everybody else, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do that today. All in all, I think it was a pretty good performance, so yeah, I mean, I'll take 2nd place. I'm getting closer to Chrissy anyway.
And that's a very good point. No one's ever got this close to her before, so you must take some great confidence looking ahead to next year.
Absolutely. I mean, I've said it before, I'm a student of the race. This is only my 4th Ironman ever, so I've got a lot more years to keep learning and hopefully catch up.
Congratulations, we're really proud of you.
Thanks, Jace.
So another glorious year at Kona for the Aussies. Craig Alexander and Pete Jacobs are 1-2 in the men's. Marinda Carfrae second in the ladies. Another fantastic race, more great stories and more already to look forward to for next year.
Yeah, the Australians have really stamped their authority all over this event in the last 5 years, and it goes quick a year, and before we know it, we're back here in 2012. A wonderful year this year, and it was great to be here and part of it. And thanks for having me on the show with you guys.
How itchy are your feet right now?
Oh, geez, it was tough to watch, but when you see a performances like Craig's today, I think you sometimes thank yourself for hanging up the boots. That was an amazing day and just great to witness.
On behalf of Chris McCormack, the two-time World Ironman Championship winner, congratulations to Craig Alexander, to Pete Jacobs, to Luke McKenzie, to Marinda Carfrae, and indeed to all the Aussies that finished. Thanks very much for your company. We'll catch you next year.